as something which is almost in a planetary scale, because these things are not happening to Japan only. I mean, the kind of information that we have all of a sudden, I mean, this thing that you referred to, the cascading effect of warnings from California up to Philippines and all the rest of it was a remarkable novel to be a witness of. I mean, you could actually, it was like O.J. Simpson going somewhere. I mean, you didn't know where the thing was going, kind of. Some people did, and those are the people that need to be given a degree of authority to deal with these things. Then we come back and make it pretty. But I mean, this is not about making it pretty. This is about making it survivable, and this tendency seems to be escalating. I'm sure some futurists are projecting now what's going to happen if we have to reduce these 500-year parameters, right?
Maybe I can pass it back to the structural engineers in some sense of we're talking about this kind of design problem for designing for failure. And I think engineers has somewhat been dealing with that, obviously, for a long time. But what does this mean in this kind of scope of this long-term assessment you're talking about? And maybe Leslie, if you want to kind of jump in.
The issue of a life and the cost to preserve it is a very complicated one. I mean, I'm not so sure I know exactly, but let's say we kill 45,000 people a year on the highway, right? That's a lot of people, and a lot is being done about it. It's a kind of an evolution. It's not a great step, but kind of an evolutionary process. And I think that you look at coastal Japan, and the thing that I remember before the earthquake, the thing I remember the most was that there was no coast. You went to the town, and there was this great wall there. And it seemed to me that as a place, it was no longer on the ocean even. So we have to do better than that. And to me, I think the point that this is really a matter of land use planning and get the booming people out of there and take the walls down. I mean, that's the solution I would propose. And I think the park is a great idea.
And you have to listen to those monuments that say, don't build below here. I mean, sometimes the old knowledge is also the best knowledge.
One of the things that has happened in our lifetime is our over-reliance on technology on the one hand, and the shifting expectations on how we can how much we can accept of natural disasters. One of the most interesting exhibitions I've been to is in Tokyo at the Edo Museum, where you look at the evolution of Tokyo and the understanding that Tokyo was designed around natural disasters, and the sort of community coming together and planning itself in expectation or about surviving the results of earthquakes that caused fires. And so some of the scenes that I saw on television were very similar graphically in scenes that you see in the Edo Museum in these wonderful little models. And certainly for us looking from the outside, what amazed me was the ability of all the services in Japan to be wearing the correct uniforms so soon after the earthquake, and that every team, the blue teams and the yellow teams, and so that it's all, we've forgotten that it's totally imbued in the culture. Oh, yeah. But it was a little bit of that was forgotten with the over-reliance on, so on the other hand, on the technological mastery that we see evident in Japan. And I think one of the things that maybe will be helpful now is we'll go back to those sort of very basic understanding of how society and technological evolution works, and maybe that can go in that different direction that Rafael was talking about, of that everything we do is about survival. We forgot that. We're assumed that basic idea. And I think in the past, people didn't build along the coast, even in this country, where you drive along the coast and you see the coast eroding, and you realize in California, everybody's built along the coast, and there's so many sort of disasters waiting to happen. So.
This is maybe this might not be a direct response to this dialogue, but during the analysis of this event, I found another thing, that is the problem of the assumption. The 5-meter high tsunami is a kind of assumption, and of course there are a lot of reasons to make it 5-meter high. But still, people could think of the case to have higher tsunami. But once you got the exact number of the 5-meter and the exact way to evacuate, people tend not to think of the other way. There was one town where the evacuation drill took place. And the residents followed properly to the drill, were swallowed up. That drill was taking place just a few weeks ago, before the event. And I know the assumption is very dangerous, but very convenient to recognize the entire system. And the detail could be the assumptions. And I think this reminded me of the Lehman shock. The investors believed the ratings, and not to think of the contents of their ratings, but just trust the ratings and invest. And the big kind of a disaster happened. And this is the kind of information structure of our civilization. And to think of the dangerousness, the danger of the disaster, or countermeasure to withstand the disaster, we need to think how we can handle the information and risks properly, and perform following those risks.
So Sasaki-san.
想定外っていう言葉が随分流行ってるんですよね。
In Japan, beyond expectation is one of the words that has been often used since the earthquake.
ただ僕はあらゆることが言えることは個別の問題じゃなくてトータルシステムの問題だっていう気がするんです。
For me, most of the issues are not about the individual issues, but the total system, relating to the total system.
構造物が安全だからといって、先ほどもお見せしたようにやっぱり二次部材が落下するとかそういうトラブルがやっぱり起きてくる。
Even the basic structural system is safe, as I mentioned earlier, if the secondary system has a problem, that would cause an issue.
それから地震についても先ほどちょっとお話したように、たまたま今回の地震は歴史的に繰り返されてある程度性格が分かっている地震だから我々はそれにアプローチ分析することができたんだけども、まずね。
Even this earthquake, because we have the history of other earthquakes, we know some character about the earthquake, so that's why we could respond in some ways using the structure system.
活断層ってわかります？活断層のようにもうどこでいつ起きるかわからない、しかも非常にインテンシティの強いそういう地震が起きたときにはこれはまた別な問題があります。
If an earthquake of active layers, active fault happens, that would cause much more effect to the effect, so it'll be a different way of responding.
1万年に1回かもしれない。
It might be once in 10,000 years.
先ほどの仙台の話で言いますと、すぐ近くに長町利府線っていう活断層があります。
In terms of this earthquake, close to where Sendai Mediatheque is, there is a
Nagamachi and
Rifusen named active force close to Sendai Mediatheque.
そういう地震が起き、それは本当に先ほど言ったみたいにほとんど確率的に低いんだけども、そういうものが起きてもいいように仙台では今日お話したアブソービングシステムやなんかが考えられている。
It's a very, very small chance that would cause a earthquake, but we have, when we thought about the system of Sendai Mediatheque, we thought the possibility of that kind of earthquake into consideration for the design.
僕はよく話を僕の研究テーマの一つでもあるんですが、リダンダンシーっていう考え方が非常に重要になってくる。
It is one of my main point of research, but the idea of redundancy is one of the most important thing.
そういうリダンダンシーを考えた全体のシステムを考えない限り、個別の技術をいくら良くしてもなかなかそれは問題の全体の解決にはならない。
So we have to think of a total system considering the redundancy. So even if we just look into individual structures, that would not solve the problem.
あとは先ほどビニョレさんがおっしゃったようなことっていうのは、ある意味では非常に政治的で社会学的で、むしろ制度の問題に近いところがあって非常に難しい問題があります。
What Mr. Vinoly mentioned earlier is something related to political and social dimensions, so it is a very difficult aspect to deal with.
人間が生活するということはなかなか計画した通りにならなくて非常に難しい微妙な問題を含んでいるからだと思います。
Because the way we live itself is it's not something we can that would happen as we plan. So that's part of the reason why it's very difficult.
Maybe we can move to Q&A from you guys, and if you have any questions.
To everybody, actually. For Japan, as the foreigners, means Americans, what do you think you can do? Because still Japan is so local at this point, and you cannot get there. Sure, you can get a ticket, you fly there with scope and everything, but you cannot do anything, right? So as architects, engineers from outside of Japan, especially Japan has a very strong and closed construction industry. So what do you think we can do for Japan?
You know, I'm not a historian, but if you look at the United States as it expanded into Alaska and then Hawaii and Guam, Wake, so forth, all moving towards Japan, you could, I think, believe that the Japanese people might have some concern about the kind of large, long-term goals of the United States, and then follow that with Hiroshima and Nagasaki. I mean, you know, these are really tough questions. And then if we go to the 1923 Kanto earthquake, the great earthquake, killed 100,000 people, or maybe even 140,000 people. And I read, I have no first-hand experience, but I read that there were serious societal issues in Japan. But of more importance to the subject, I think, is that there was some resistance in Japan in receiving support from the United States, and that resulted in, I think, a terrible misunderstanding on the part of the United States press, which set up a relationship between the peoples of the United States and Japan that continued on through to the beginning of the Second World War. I mean, it's a very tough issues out there, and part of it, I think, is is that it's very difficult, even for those of us who go often to Japan, very difficult